I'm pleased this afternoon to be able to present Herbert Brün, a very long-time friend and famous composer. One of the few thinkers about serious things in music in the United States. And I hope that he will share with you and with me some of the things that have happened to him in the last year, because they've had a very exciting time in global travel. And I guess we're going to talk about some of the projects you were working with and so forth. So without further ado, from the University of Illinois, Dr. Herbert Brün.
I really would like to introduce Keith Jones, who is
after all these years.
Keith Johnson, who is with me already now for how many years?
All these years.
All these years, doing the technology that I can't. There's some I can and some I can't. He's doing the things that I cannot do. We have been traveling. I have been traveling. I've been working for a long time. One point I would like to make immediately, if you don't hear me, tell me, is while you travel, you come into places and a door is opened and you get in and there is equipment. There's equipment. There is equipment. It varies in size from so big to very large. And the door which was opened for me today, already for the second or third time in my life, is a totally new picture of rather respectable equipment, not only in quantity, but as I could quickly see, in updated relevance. That is, it is really there. The difficulty that meets one when one is called a famous composer and an old friend and a long time, blah, blah, all these good things in life, what grows is the difficulty to remain selective in one's appraisal of importance, significance, and necessity in particular. I've seen at least 3 studios in Europe which are really big and nothing happens. That's frustrating, annoying, and a big warning. It is useless to tell that to the people who run those 2 or 3 shops over there, because they don't even listen to what you're saying. The difficulty, however, remains also in the presence of workshops and workplaces where a lot of things happen. A lot of things, again, are usually therefore a lot because there is some interest involved that's not necessarily either technological or musical. Certainly very rarely compositional. And that's a little thing on which I ride my steam engine. I'm interested in composition for the single reason. It is the only human activity that distinguishes us from animals, because it puts things together that otherwise would not get together. It interferes with nature so that nature is forced to bring about things that nature without human influence would never undertake to bring about. No animal does that, no plant does that. It is a strictly human interest. The reason that composition is so frequently identified with music is because music has been considered by all societies we have a history of either as a strategy of conformism, that is, which goes up to the present day, from ecstatic dances to make people willing murderers, up to the beat today. It is one big history of keeping humanity and at a subhuman level as long as possible, and as long as that is profitable for a minority of subhuman people. That is approximately the history of music, with a few exceptions, and you have to pay a lot of money to study those few exceptions. In the meantime, it has become easy, due to technology, to get recordings, tapes, and other things that show you what has been done, so you do not have to plead innocence anymore when you do a piece of music to not know that it has been written already 250 years ago or 25 years ago. There's no excuse any longer to write an old piece again. Same goes for pictures and paintings and poetry. It is one of the curses of technology. I, of course, salute that curse, but not everybody shares my opinion there, nor do I wish everybody to share my opinions. However, it has to be observed that you can see every picture, you can read every poem, whenever you want to. It is no longer necessary to save enormous amounts of money to travel to some distant location, to Italy, and watch the Vatican. You can have it in your home. You can buy it, as a matter of fact. And you know very well, anything you can buy, you will buy. So the whole thing has become a merchandise.
Why did you say that composition has been linked with music? You started to say
Yes,
that because either it's considered a subhuman activity.
I remember. The reason that composition has been connected with music for a long time is because the arts, the other arts, have had what is called a representative feature to them. You could say that looks like a tree, that is a tree, so it was considered more copying. And as a matter of fact, societies have been living on the notion that the more similar a work of art is to something real, the better is a work of art. It was a mistake, like so many mistakes that are with us for 2,000–3,000 years. That doesn't make them very much better. They're actually boring. But they stay with us. You still look at a picture and look, does it resemble the tree in front of my house or does it not? He is a really good painter. You always feel like you could grab it with your hands, right? That's a text I heard, and you can read it. And even today, particularly in the garbage that is published under postmodernism in the world, very famous names are attached to it, some of them new names, unfortunately young people among them. It's really a shame. And they are back to this kind of representative, concrete, realistic, and all that kind of bullshit. With music, that was a little too difficult. For instance, it was a long time that you had to actually found ASCAP and GEMA and other authors' rights societies, companies, in order to buy music. You couldn't even sell it. Music escaped for a long, long time this fate of being a merchandise, a commodity. It took technology to remove these good times, and we are grateful for technology that now we can buy a piece of music. Not only can you buy a piece of music, but she can buy the piece of music, the same piece of music you bought, she can buy. So everybody can. You cannot even corner the market anymore. Now what do you say to that? So this reproduction of art, the reproduction of works of art, led to a problem with which I'm concerned, and with I think is a concern that I would like to leave behind me with as many young people as possible. In a world like that, as I depicted, or as it made me, and it is not my fault, how can one possibly still distinguish oneself from somebody else? Now, is it necessary to distinguish oneself from somebody else? I do not know. I'm not telling you you ought to. What I do, I claim that if you observe people long enough, you find out that they would like very much and affectionately to distinguish not only themselves from others, they would also like to distinguish others from themselves. They might even wish to distinguish between people that they see, so that the cognition or recognition process is not a mere labeling, not a mere mail service, so that I can say, yeah, I know that's Ed and that's, I don't know what, Veronica, never mind, but I can say other things about these two people that distinguish them, not just the labels and the names. So there must be something in the composition of these people that makes them unique, as unique as any one of us can be. So it becomes now interesting, can one generate an environment in which you can make a work of art, which means put something together that without you would not happen, and to the best of your knowledge distinguish yourself sufficiently from others and not repeat or simply imitate nature or society or people or other music or other paintings or other poetry. What do you need in order not to by mistake become an imitator or an undistinguishable non-entity? And that problem is a problem of composition, and the problem has not been facilitated by technology, but in the contrary, it has become more difficult. If you learn to handle the equipments and learn sufficiently how to handle the equipments, you'll find out very quickly that the equipment assembles more and more power instead of less and less. It becomes more and more powerful. It becomes a prompter. You know what a prompter is in the theater? Somebody who knows the line before you and helps you under the pretense of being helpful. It prompts you. Then the actor gets stuck, it says, line please, so that the prompter has to pay attention and say the next line. You live in a society, excuse me that I use this very nice word for what we live in which you are continuously being prompted 24 hours a day, every minute of the time, under all kinds of pretexts. Education is one of them, motherhood is another, fatherhood is another, the siblings and the environment, the reasons why you have to get up at a certain time, the clocks become prompters. Everything prompts you. You have no time for a single thought of yourself. You don't even need it. As a matter of fact, people tell you, why don't you mind your own business, just do as you're told. I could say, just do as you're prompted. The beautiful thing of it all, that's what it haunts, is that we not only do as we are told, but we even speak as we are told. And our languages have suffered from having been prompted by the language. When you say, you know what I mean, that's not an idea you really have. The idea you really have, and you haven't the faintest notion what I mean, right? But in order to keep up the social discourse and be friendly, affectionate, not get a punch in the nose, you say, you know what I mean. Oh yeah, or if you want to stop a conversation, I know what you mean. These are sentences that you did not invent, but they invent you. So all of us are running the risk continuously to be loudspeakers of a system that we do not control. I don't have to mention them all, the press, TV, and radio, picture postcard, the paper shops, when you go there and find all the pre-printed birthday greetings and all that. Everything is a good business because you were willing to be made morons by a system that wants to make profit. The advent of computers and its descent from unachievable heights to almost home equipment that you can buy something, get it into your home, is not more wrought with risks than when people could buy their own piano. some 200 years ago. It was a new thing to have a piano at home, and it was heavy to carry and very expensive. But they had it, and there it stood around and had a cover over it, and flowers looked very good on it. And children were warned not to put wet glasses on it because, you know, the polish might suffer. And then Cousin Mary came on Friday and sang songs horribly. And that was the beginning of culture with the piano in the home. Now we have the synthesizers in the home, and Cousin Mary is still there. In the meantime, she's joined by Cousin Joe. And Cousin Joe is much more hip on it and knows much more. He comes with 2 synthesizers against her 1. And so this is going to be a nice play, and slowly you will have an ongoing concert going on, and you will not be able to discern it from dishwashing and getting changed or the vacuum cleaner. And there will be a great giggle about it. You look what I can, wow, all this kind of stuff. I'm going around and asking people to reconsider. Not lose their fun, but reconsider the way they think and talk about it. I'm not interfering with action. I'm interfering with a particular connection between commonplace and thinking. This connection I would like to interrupt. Thinking is one and commonplace some other. Commonplace is good for us. We want to quickly pass one another. Pass me the milk, can I have the sugar? Ah, you're late again. Ah, do you always have to say that? I mean, you can get by with these idiotic sentences, but don't think they are thinking. They are not. Thinking seems to begin to take on a dimension that it hasn't had for young people who are not necessarily scientists or philosophers or great thinkers. They're just people who want to do something. No, this is as far as I would like to go in my warning. Promise is that a certain sanctity and sacredness that is attached by the industry to masterworks may at last be curtailed. You might find out that these pieces, these great pieces, these masterworks that are always told us are models, are not models at all. And that the educational system has forgotten its main task, namely to teach you what to avoid doing. It teaches you all the things that have been done. You know how many symphonies have been written. You know the symphonies, you know the poetry, you know the pictures. You are supposed to have a great education and culture. Know all kinds of things. And nobody tells you, and don't do these things. They have been done. So I am here to fill this gap. Comes the next chapter. By now I have developed into an old man. I was not always an old man. The main change is that the pile of garbage that accumulates in my memory after concerts and lectures and books and scores, including my own wonderful works, all that together piles up and piles up to unforeseen levels. Memory has not yet started to malfunction. I hope soon I'll be senile and can forget all that. The moment it is not quite functional, I cannot rely on it. At the moment I want to write a piece, all these memories come and write me. You liked me so much. Write me. They all want to be written. They don't even tell me their names. They just hum through my ear to my brain, and then they sit around. Oh yeah. I know what it is. I shove it away. By the time I shove it away, it's like, da-da-da. Now that goes through. Whatever I do, there's always somewhere where I have to lift my hand and say, I know you already. And it knows me. So I am in the grips of culture. And since I'm talented, I have no way of getting rid of it without help. Talent is what you are doomed to do. Now, how did you get off it so that you can do something that you want and not just can? The computer. Computer, when it works, is a non-committed system. It is only a place of possibilities. It has no memory unless I load it. It does not remember Beethoven, it does not remember Brahms, it does not even remember Stockhausen or Brün. It does not remember it. Anything I don't put in is not in it, right? So wonderful situation. It is actually the first time I met innocence after all religious lies and blunders. I found the computer is innocent. It is pure, innocent. It is all what we always wanted humans to be and never made it. It is. And it is it without preaching any morals. It is unethically so, unmorally so, immorally so. It is innocently so. And it doesn't preach it either. So it's a wonderful partner. It's something you don't have to blush every time you come to, or now what will it say this time? Or will it say again, you're late again, Herbert? It won't. I would have to program to do that. And then I would probably program to do it to him, not to me. If I don't do little jokes and vandalisms with it, I can make big jokes with it. Big jokes are when I limit the innocence of the machine by inserting, by way of programming, constraints. These constraints are constraints that I decide upon, that I've chosen. I can say, you will now represent certain sounds. Nothing higher than that, nothing lower than that, nothing more stranger than this, nothing more familiar than that. I can do all these things, and then I have generated for me an environment that is alien to all the environments that I remember. In this alienated field, I have a chance to play games and to organize situations and configurations that are above my ability to remember. So, the typical part of Herbert Brün's work is not going to be the result, but the constraints I have chosen to stipulate for that piece, if I still am in this old-fashioned genre of writing or composing a piece. Let's not discuss that now. This is another issue. At the moment I write a piece, I would like to write a piece that hasn't been written yet, to the best of my knowledge. I don't want it even to be similar to a piece I have written. And I would like it to become a now composition and not a composition built on models that I imitate. There I have a chance. And this is why I recommend to at least more than a passing acquaintanceship with a computer system that allows you to be as big but also as small as you want. And don't use it as a facilitator for writing pieces, use it as a facilitator to forget pieces, to avoid becoming one more of the same, which is not desirable. What I've done, I think I should now say, right? This is my nickname for it. Sawdust is a title. It is, when you saw, then something falls, by the way, serendipity. It's dust, is small particles. Dust is also what you see sparkle in the living room when a sunbeam comes in and you beat one of the pillows on the couch. It's It's lovely, you should try that once. Also, you find it on the back of pianos, and before you wipe it, you can take your finger and write in it, I love you. So the person who comes and cleans after you, say, whoever that may be. So unless it is one of those vipers can't read. Illiterate vipers are a pest. Sawdust assumes that the computer I can work with at the moment can look at something 48,000 times per second. Look. There's another word for scanning. It can notice changes 48 times per second. It can also notice no changes, but it tries. So if I have a line like this, you scan this line and come back and nothing, no change. If, however, I'm modifying, I do something like this. Then it tells me, ha, something. Ha, something. Ha, something. Ha, something. Every time there is a change, it reports it to itself and then to me. Is there any question about that? Is it lucid what I'm trying to do? Good. So the next parenthesis is that our ear perceives changes in air pressure, not air pressure, the changes it perceives. It perceives, therefore, changes in frequency, not the frequency, but changes. It perceives the frequency of changes. So anybody opposed to change is non-musical. Therefore, we cannot prolong a great discussion. People who object to change are no partners in a conversation. This is what I can accomplish. I can start with specifying 48,000 points per second and select at which of these 48,000 points there is a change. How do I do this? I call each situation an element. And I say about that element that it is on some scale from 0 to 4,000, for instance. It has an amplitude. This is the amplitude of this element, and that's the amplitude of... Can you see what I'm doing here? Is it visible? So, I write the amplitude. The first amplitude is 600, and the next amplitude is 1,000. This is not only for example at the moment. I mean, it's nothing real. 1,000, and then I tell it also how long are you to stay at 600, and how long are you going to stay at 1,000. I tell it how many of the 48,000 points will it say nothing. And then it changes and will then say for how many points. So this, for instance, are, let's say 50 points, and this I make 250 points. Okay, there I have my element. Amplitude, that's this, and duration is this. Question? You must ask now, because later you will have nothing to ask anymore. That's it. The fact is that I can do that when I have a computer that prompts me, I'm waiting for the element.
This is for the production of sound, right?
That is for the production of changes.
Okay.
And when I put this into a converter that converts changes of voltage into something on tape, then I can hear it. So one analogy to this drawing is sound. Another analogy to this drawing could be the economic developments of the next week, so watch it. The point is to understand is that I can creep into those minuscule, into the dust of waveforms. When I do it small enough, I can almost make a waveform like that. Almost, I say, because for the technicians and people who know everything, it is clear that every point is a little moment of a staircase. Because it lasts a while. I do not have really an analog curve, I have lots of little stairs. That's what's called square wave, but when you put the points in which there are changes, if you put the changes very densely together, you approach analog curve, nearly. Good. Would you take over here and explain a bit how this is done, or should I continue up to links? Not necessary.
Save your voice for a moment.
Thank you.
First of all, how long is this? Are we going on with this? I did never get the word.
The class is over just before 3. So we have only about 12 more minutes, but those people that absolutely aren't required to go to something after this, would you please stay so as not to be rude, okay?
So what I think we should do is, with the next few minutes, go quickly to a piece.
Okay.
Where we can play something. The notion with setting up the elements into a group, then, we call that a link. So you have a set of stair-step definitions of the waveform, and then that waveform is repeated over and over and over and over and over again. It's a periodic event. That creates a sound, but in any case, a steady-state sound. One of the goals with this system and with the computer is to be able to work with transformations of sounds. So what we do is we set up a beginning waveform and then define another waveform as an ending waveform and say, all right, transform this beginning waveform into the ending waveform. And what you hear as the acoustic event are the traces of that beginning waveform transforming into the ending waveform. The computer, I have to say, since we didn't get a chance, it doesn't go. It broke a week ago. I tried to borrow a computer here to work, but we have pieces on tape, so we play those. First of all, how many freshmen sitting here? Sophomore? Juniors? So you have something of a background in math, right? So you have at least an analytic geometry course in high
How
school.
many people in music here? How many people here are doing music, so to speak?
Uh-huh. And how many of you have taken one of the associated music courses out of the departments? You're all from the graphics or the what's it called? Composed interdisciplinary, what is the name of that course?
CFA 100.
CFA. Uh-huh. Good. Then perhaps the time is not wasted to mention a couple more fundamental things. When we draw a picture like this, essentially what we're drawing is the course of the speaker in and out, back and forth, as it goes. And so with the computer, with the digital to analog synthesis system, we have the ability 48,000 times per second to tell the speaker where to go. And when the speaker goes, it makes a change in the air pressure, and then you hear something. These waveforms that we draw on the board then are representations of how we're directing the speaker to move back and forth in its case, and therefore what the sound is going to be. If you blow a trumpet, or you get a friend to blow a trumpet, the trumpet causes vibrations in the air that are picked up by a microphone, and one can then see on an oscilloscope or on the computer screen, if you've sampled it, what the contour of that waveform is produced by the sound. Here, we go the other way around. We specify the shape and then let that go into the speaker, and that turns into the sounds. The game with the Sawdust program is to start with an initial shape that has its sound, and end up with another sound, another shape which has its sound, maybe oh, and hear the change between and hear what the consequent change between them is. As Herbert mentioned, with using the computer to try to forget the musics that you know, or forget the culture's implantations of musics, even if you haven't studied them, they're there. In this description of the waveforms, we're able to produce things that aren't produced by physical instruments. Neither voices, nor violins, nor trumpets, nor drums, nor kicking the case, because these patterns don't have to follow the laws of nature or the laws of acoustic vibrating objects. Also, the transformation from the beginning waveform into the ending waveform doesn't have to follow the laws of physics of a decaying violin string. So it goes nying. It's a set of algorithms constructed. The algorithm to transform a beginning waveform into an ending waveform wouldn't have been there without the idea to make this particular algorithm and then the work done to put it there. It's not a natural phenomenon. So the fact that we can specify these shapes and then specify a transformation of shapes not according to the laws of physics is what gives a chance to produce something that is not yet music. To produce a music which produce acoustic events that might contribute to a next music as opposed to a reproduction of a previous music. Do you think, which piece would we play?
Or did you have an idea?
But I told you so.
Yeah,
Told you so.
we play I Told You So. I have that on the pad.
You have that? It's that place.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great. In order to take one step further, I composed a piece that's not based on a musical idea like da-da-da-da or something like that. It is almost as stupid as that idea was before Beethoven used it for a symphony and rehabilitated it. It is the idea that people say, "I told you so." It's a wonderful sentence to be told, right? I told you so. Huh? You see? So I inspected the inflection of the voices, these innumerable powers that be, that are always a little older than we are. And they're always saying, "I told you so. I told you so." So I took this inflection and I exposed it in this piece to such an extent for 12 minutes or a little more, so that people who've heard it will not any longer inflict it on their offsprings. So first part of the music, you can start immediately, yes? First start with the music, you have the usual late afternoon home situation. You can picture it any way you bloody well like. Nothing happens except what always happens. And somebody just is practicing in the next room the new synthesizer they bought. And then I give you a sign, suddenly comes in my variations on the subject, "I told you so." Then don't forget that I told you so.
Yeah, I think this is 13 minutes.
Yes, look at the, do you have a clock here? If you have watches, I like that people know approximately when they hear first start a piece for orientation. It will last 13 minutes, he said, 13 minutes, so you know how long you still have to suffer at any moment.
Just go ahead.
You immediately hear these are of a different family, these sounds. They're steady state, no bending, no transformation. They're just pitches. happens too often in